Hello everyone. Welcome to day 10 of the series SQL50. Today's problem statement is average time of process per machine. Let's look at the table first, which has four columns: machine ID, process ID, activity type, and timestamp. Machine ID and process ID are integers, activity type is enum, timestamp is float. This table shows user activities for a factory website. Here, this combination, machine ID, process ID, and activity type, is the primary key. Machine ID is ID of the machine, process ID is the ID of the process running on the machine with the machine ID. Activity type is enum or category of type start and end. Timestamp is a float representing the current time in seconds. Start means the machine starts the process at that given timestamp, and end is also when the process is ending. Start will always be before end timestamp. This is also important information. It is guaranteed that each machine ID process ID has has a start and end time. Now let's look at the actual problem statement. This is just the background that we need to know before understanding the problem statement. There's a factory website that has several machines, each running on the same number of processes. Write a solution to find the average time each machine takes to complete a process. This time, the time to complete a process, is the end time minus the start time. So, this is the definition of the process time. The average time is calculated by the total time to complete every process on the machine divided by the number of processes that were run. So that will be the definition of the average process time. The resulting table should have machine ID along with average time as processing underscore time, which should be rounded to 3 decimal points. These are important points uh, to make use of specific keywords to get exactly the expected result. The you return the result table in any order. So this is one example. So we have machine ID, process ID, activity type, and timestamp. So for every machine ID, we need to find the average processing time. So first we need to find the total processing time, and then we can take the average. Now we see that in this activity type, the start and end are there, and the timestamps are also given. We need to arrange the table, or we need to first have a result table in such a way so that we have start time in one column and end time in another column. And after that, we need to get the difference between two. That will give us the processing time for one process ID, one machine ID. And after that, we simply have to take an average and round this and group by machine ID. Now let's look at the problem solution. So this is the query that I wrote. First of all, what we are doing is we are doing an inner join between the activity table and itself. So one table I am uh, using an alias of S, which is for start time, and the other one is E, which is for end time. So from these two tables, I'm doing an inner join, and my inner join condition is where machine ID and process ID are matching. So in this way, we will get for each machine ID and process ID the start time and end time side by side. But then I want to make sure that my first column is end time and the second column is start time, because I want to get the difference between these two columns as my processing time. So that's why this condition will make sure that one is the start time and one is the end time. You could also use activity type condition where activity type is start for the timestamp, not the timestamp, the activity type coming from the table S is start, and for the other table, which is E, it is end. Or otherwise we can also use this condition. This will actually make sure that this timestamp is coming from the end table, and this timestamp is coming from the start table. And the activity type is actually end for this one and start for this one, because this is already mentioned in the problem statement that the start time will always be lesser than the end time. So this is what indirectly this condition will make sure that we have the start time and end time correctly. And after that, we are grouping by one. One is nothing but the first column, which is our machine ID. And once we have the inner join, we will have the start time, end time side by side. We are deducting start time from end time to get the processing time, and after that we are taking the average. Here, taking average means for every machine ID, let's say there are n number of process IDs, so for every machine ID we are getting the average processing time like this. And we also have uh, the condition to round the number up to 3 decimal points, which was also mentioned in the problem statement. So that's the solution.